What's going on, workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And today we're finally talking about something
This is
we've been
going
doing
on
on
the
streams.
30th.
I think
Last day
so.
to vote in Texas early. I don't know your state's rules, but go vote.
Go vote. Vote.org. We got to have it in the top link in the description. And that way, hopefully, you don't have to wait in line on the 3rd. So if you're here in Texas, I don't know. It's cold, so I'm
Whatever your
glad.
plan is, have a plan, execute the plan, go vote.
All right, cool. So today, World of Warcraft Shadowlands, I have stepped into this world and I've been playing on controller, which one of the things I'm going to say first and foremost, that it's not surprising, but at the same time, it did kind of throw me, was the amount of people who have no idea controller support is native to World of Warcraft. Like
Native. No add-on.
I literally had a comment going, yeah, I don't think they're ever going to add controller support natively to this. I go, no, they did. Here's the guide. It works almost as well as I want. Like, there's a couple of things. I'm gonna keep providing feedback. I'm gonna be that guy on the forums.
It's a hidden system, so I don't know that they're saying it's finished.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that this would be considered
It's
finished.
hidden in console commands. You will need Brian's guide or a serious amount of guesswork.
Yeah. Random typing into the key. Oh my god! Like, what are the odds? Like,
I mean, thankfully, somebody in the comments knew for us, right? Somebody fed us the initial command, and you went off and
then I
sought
just
out.
ran from there. Like, I was able to go from there. So I've been playing on controller, and I'm going to tell you, hands down, I am actually having a really, really good time with the game. And I could tell you, in all honesty, I would have stepped away probably by now if I wasn't playing on a controller. Like, if Final Fantasy XIV didn't have controller support, I don't think I'd be playing it to this day. That is how important that feature is for me. And then the counter argument that I always hear is that you can't do this, you can't play MMOs on a controller. And I say, hi, I'm Brian, this is Worth the Game. Like, you must be new around here, like, because you absolutely can. It might not be your preference, and it's not my intention to convert keyboard and mouse, aficionados into the controller scheme. I'm just going to tell you hands down, gaming for me is defined by a controller. I can do mouse and keyboard in very short spurts. It's a comfort thing. It's a mental, like, a gymnastics thing. That all being said, the fact that I am just being able to kick back and play WoW on a controller, I honestly think if they were to make a couple more adjustments, I would love to see this on console. I would love to be able to play this everywhere in the world. Like, I would, if I was going to put this on PlayStation or Xbox, I would personally want that. And I think that would be something that would be really interesting to see for this game. I just would be, in my mind. Like, what do you think, Chris?
I think the reason that there isn't console support is because of add-ons. So it's the exact same reason that 14 doesn't support. It's one of the top reasons that Yoshi P has listed for him not supporting add-ons. Regardless of why the community may or may not want add-ons, Yoshi P has said one of his major concerns is balance, making sure that the game is balanced for all existing players, and he has chosen to invite console players in, and so he doesn't want to suddenly put them on the outs, as opposed to WoW has allowed this entire community of third-party support to grow and foster, and they've built an API, and they've encouraged it. They've also managed it. There's some pruning where they say, like, we don't want you doing that. So, like, they don't just let it run rampant, but, like, there's definitely a whole portion of their dev team that is not paid by them. There's this whole third-party group that makes UIs function in different ways to play all of this stuff. And if they went to console, they would lose that. And so, I don't know that people would want to. I don't know that the game would take off as well. It might, but I think that there's a reason, like, the Minecraft console version functions differently than the PC version.
Yeah. So on the concept of add-ons, because let's talk about that, especially as it relates in it here. I would say first and foremost, I have never felt more spoiled by Final Fantasy by what it just does natively. So in World of Warcraft, it is so impressive when you talk about the add-on community and what everybody has put together, because it's like, oh, you want to do this? Oh, just go download this, go download this, go download this. And even people were like, why aren't you using console port? Because that's something where it lets you play World of Warcraft with a controller. Well, it requires an extra piece of software, WoW Mapper, to run in the background. I want to understand the controller and the native support before I even consider adding in an add-on in that regards. So
which existed prior to that.
Right.
So that third-party piece may go away in the coming months.
It might, and that's my hope, actually, because it's like some of the layout is similar to 14 with how you lay out your skills, and I was like, that's genius. I think that's really exciting to see. I'm impressed by the community behind World of Warcraft's add-ons. I'm spoiled by what Yoshi P and his team have brought in natively, because you're like, oh, you want to rearrange your bars? Well, there's, get barkeep or whatever, and then that you could do that, and then all of a sudden in 14, like, that's just native. Like, you can do that. They continue to add on more and more support. So in a way, my question is Yoshi P using WoW as to sort, like, WoW add-ons as a source for what they should be doing?
Are they also developing for Yoshi P?
Yeah.
Because WoW does add native things that have been add-ons for a long time.
Yeah.
You'll see something come in that had been an add-on, and that add-on developer probably has like a Patreon and all this, and like that just gets taken. Apple does the same thing. Like, remember when our phones didn't have flashlights and you had to have like an app that would turn on the flash to your phone? So like it's common. So like I think Yoshi P is taking that feedback. It's interesting to think that he would use WoW add-ons as an inspiration for features that 14 needs. I will say, if I had to rate the games, I would rate, as far as like customizing like my UI and making it truly fit me, I would put World of Warcraft down here, and then I would put Final Fantasy here, and I would put World of Warcraft with add-ons up here. And so like 14 sits in between. It's well above what WoW can do native, but like WoW with like an unlimited support of this other labor force, where I can download an add-on that's specifically my flavor. Allows them, they don't have to make wide sweeping appeal. There can be an add-on that just caters to the way I want to play.
Now, if you guys want to see like any of our live streams of that, we've been doing that on Twitch Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday mornings, and we're looking to maybe even doing a couple different things here and over the coming months. But we also post these highlights over on Game Club, and so one of the links will be in the description if you guys haven't done that. Like, that's just like our highlights and reactions and things like that from live streams.
No thumbnails, no editing.
It's just like, here you
minimum
go.
description.
Yeah, and so like if anybody, because it's when like someone's like, show me somebody playing with the controller, it's like, here you go. Like, it's just the same kind of concept when we talk about like Shadow PC. It's like, show me somebody playing this game in the cloud. It's like, well, I've got almost 2 years of gameplay of me.
But none on WoW, because that's against terms of service.
Currently, yeah. That'll be interesting to see in the long run. So,
just saying.
So just sets a little bit more context for anybody who just stumbled upon this video. So I started off in the starter zone, like the whole new Shadowlands experience, Exile's Reach, and it was incredible. It was interesting to also kind of get. Yeah, I think you were enjoying my perspective, but I was also enjoying your perspective, because while I'm experiencing this, I don't know who these different monsters are, and the bombing thing was hilarious, and that was such a cool thing, and everybody was like really surprised by my reaction to a bombing mission. But
for those of us that have been doing those quests since 2008, and people go, "Oh, another bombing quest,"
and I'm sitting here just laughing like a child, a kid in candy store, like, this is amazing. Getting to experience that, and then uncoupling with it is that you're like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest hits of World of Warcraft. Like,
yes,
they like, this is kind of where in Final Fantasy, to translate it, where we were doing that quest and it was going through the expansions, like as a, like, not gonna spoil anything. 5
quest.
Yeah,
felt good for players that have been playing for a while.
Yeah, and so just kind of going through that, and I was like, this is really awesome, and that was that for you. But for me, it was also like, this is interesting, like introducing me to a wide range of things for the Horde. We're playing on Mal'Ganis on the Horde, just FYI right now. And so I'm kind of going and stepping through this world, getting introduced, and then boom, gets put out right into this big city. You and I do this quest, and then all of a sudden, boom, we're in BFA, Battle for Azeroth, which is interesting because BFA, like if you look at it, it was massively praised when it launched, and then it quickly became garbage. And that's where you see the WoW refugee concept. That's why we saw a lot of players coming from WoW to 14. It's like it had this great experience, but there was no payoff. So that experience for me is great. Like, the leveling experience right now has been fantastic. I'm almost 27 right now. The level cap is 50. First and foremost, going to tell you guys, it's so much less intimidating that when Shadowlands drops, the level cap is 60. It is so much less intimidating to sit here and say, hey, because then it's not like, hey, we rocket shipped the whole leveling experience, and now it's going to take you no time at all to get to 130. But what happens here is that every level feels significant. every level I'm getting a new skill, or like I'm playing a druid, so I just got my boom chicken thing. I don't know. I'm bad at the lore. I apologize.
It's called a moonkin. The community calls it a boomkin. So you got there.
Cool. Moon chicken boomkin.
Yeah, it's a chicken.
It's a thing. And so I just got that
Laser
unlocked,
chicken.
and then I'm having some fun with that, learning. And Chris and I did a dungeon, which we took the highlight of that dungeon run up on, and so that was so much fun. Like doing the dungeon was so much more interesting to me than doing kind of the leveling piece of it, because I feel like I've got a good pace for that. I feel like, okay, yeah, run to this quest, talk to this person, and then I was like, hey, let's do a dungeon. We haven't done one. And we did it, and it was so much fun. The monsters were taunting us in a dungeon, like the voice acting, and it's like I felt really spoiled. I felt like, and then it's just funny. Like I think they're leaning more into maybe into humor. That guy comes out with shark hands on, and then those
Actual sharks.
Yeah, that are actual sharks, and then they drop around and go on the thing. I'm also not playing with what is called a DEM. Is that right?
Deadly boss mobs. They're present in 14 too. He's not playing with any add-on that warns him the encounter. He's playing all natural, so the boss telegraphs or he gets hit.
Yeah. So I'm enjoying that aspect, and so people I think have also said that they appreciate that I'm also doing that, because it's like, yeah, I'm just kind of figuring it out, and so far so good. Like it's been fun, and how the dungeons are currently configured it's different from our leveling experience, because it's like it's you and me, and occasionally we might accidentally pull a couple others. We've had Star join us. I think a couple other people in the community want to come and play and level with us. So hopefully we can kind of get a little bit more teamwork of that. I'm going to say this, and I keep saying this. Having done that dungeon, having played this game, I really think the one thing that 14 messed up on was not having a 5-man dungeon minimum. I would have preferred a 6 when we talk about it. That's just my Final Fantasy XI player in me. But having a 5-man feels way more structured than 4. I think that gives a little bit more flexibility on the DPS, and we had a debate on that on stream.
We did,
and so I thought that was that's just where I fall. I think from just a pipeline.
It's closer to the percentage breakdown of players. It's still not there.
Well, no,
the percentage
it'll
of
never
players
be.
that play DPS first.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to have everything be a 10-man.
I'm playing a DPS in this case.
Yeah.
I'm not tanking or healing at the moment, and that's fine. And so that's just where I'm at in that regard. So all in all, I think it feels a little bit better having 5 people, in that regards. And that's why I actually really enjoyed the 8-man content in 14, because that feels more on pace with like having a lot more things that might be going on. And so I felt like it was enjoyable. I have yet to do PvP. Somebody said they can't wait to watch my rage videos on the PvP and and like the battle lines and whatever. And so
it won't be fun to do in leveling currently, because with the giant level squish, things have gotten a little out of balance, and so it won't be as fun as if we wait till cap, where things are closer to balanced.
So I haven't done that yet, and so far, like my goals, like if we're gonna sit here and just kind of like, and then I'll let Chris ask any kind of questions he has for me. My goals are to get to cap. I want to get to cap, and then I also am looking forward to playing through Shadowlands. My nightmare is that Shadowlands drops the same day, patch 5.4 drops the same day that Cyberpunk 2077 drops. Like it's seeming like I was like, oh man, November is gonna...
and Destiny's Light.
Destiny's November now. Oh, thank God. Like that's for me. I can play through Beyond Light, and I can just play Destiny all November now, and just be happy with that. And then okay, great. Now December is around. Final Fantasy. Oh God, Cyberpunk. Okay, let's go.
I'm not confident enough to say people should take December 10th off work, though.
I wouldn't. It's like
maybe just plan on playing it on whatever weekend after it comes out.
Yeah,
maybe don't plan on playing it on launch day. I think that's a Thursday anyway.
Yeah.
Just don't.
Just go. Just wait. And hopefully, but people are like, oh, when's it coming out? Like when I literally have it and I'm playing it. Like that's
maybe not even then. Maybe even then they're like, well, we're gonna patch in the second half of the game. I promise it'll be here.
And just throw a Stadia ad right now. Patches, Stadia. No. So that's been my experience. It's really enjoyable playing with Chris, because I feel like I have kind of a Sherpa in this regards, and it is that was one of the things that kind of grounds me into it. I'm going to tell you hands down, I have no connection to the people and to this king that we're helping and to the trolls. Correct. And that's one of the things that I'm okay with. It doesn't, like, the thing that grounds me and roots me is the fact that, like, Chris and I are playing together. We're playing with the community. People are actually hanging out on stream, which I was like, well, I'm probably going to kill our chance at partner for Twitch because, like, no, but no, people are actually, like, there and showing up. So thank you guys for being a part of that experience. And I'm stepping into this world, and it's like, okay, like, maybe I'll get some lore connections. I don't have a deeply rooted understanding of
I think you're supposed to.
And that's actually kind of, I'm not the sole, my character isn't the focal point, where in 14, I am the Warrior of Light. I am the kind of the driver of the events in a way. And then in here, it's like, I'm just kind of there, and I'm just kind of going doing my thing. And I think what roots me, what connects me to the world more is actually the people that I'm playing with. Like, that's just how I feel right now, being that I've been tossed into BFA. What I do appreciate, I'm going to tell you this, from a super positive perspective, the leveling experience and the idea that if I was going to go do another character, I could go into a different expansion. So it's not like I'm sitting here all like, I've done this 3 times now. No, I could go and do any of the past expansions that I haven't, right? I can jump
based on the questions you have about BFA, the community can direct you which expansion will fit you best.
Exactly. And so if there's one that's rooted with dragons, you just tell me what dragon expansion that is, and that's where I'm at. And I'll probably enjoy that far more than this. But the zones, hands down, the zones, like, you might not like the art style. You know, people can have a preference on how the art style is. I think 14's art style is superior to WoW's, but WoW's art style fits it very well and then connects the world. Like, the world feels like I'm just going off into a direction, and there's never a time where it's like, here's a loading screen, and then all of a sudden everything's different. It's like you see the transition into some other form. And I think the zone design's actually just impressive.
Yes.
The scale of it, jumping off the pyramid and just kind of like making your way down, impressive. Like, it's just really... I died. Yeah.
You can die.
You can die. And so I really like appreciate that aspect. And then there's a couple bugs that we've noticed, and then we've also kind of been playing around with the quest sync, which is really enjoyable. Like, all in all, like, the game just feels like it's easy to jump in and start playing. And that's why we've spent so much time on quests. And that's where I was like, oh, when we started doing some dungeon runs, that was actually really good too. So I'm looking forward to playing more. I'm, like I said, 27. I've got, I'm 50% of the way to my first capped character. And this will be a first for me for World of Warcraft. And all, again, ties by how I started. If it didn't support this, like, I would have dabbled and then I would have just bounced. I mean, that's just who I am, unfortunately. Chris, what questions you got for me?
I mean, so I haven't, just for anybody that has played WoW, like, to understand kind of is what level of authenticity is his experience. I'm playing with him, and I'm playing on an heirloom character. So, like, if we have like a bad respawn or something because the zones are denser, I can take the pull. So, like, he's not having the just like you feel like you're getting ganked by like a forced respawn because there are a lot of people in the zones, which is unique to when there's a lot of people in the zones because the zones are very densely packed. So like I'm handling that. But then I haven't given him bigger bags. I haven't given him heirloom gear. I don't warn him about things that will kill him until after they've killed him and he asks why. So, like, I'll answer any questions he has, but, like, I'm going to just let him die to things because I think that that's a more honest experience of what this is. Now, there will come a point where, like, when you feel like you've gotten the hang of it and we're just trying to race to 50, if you've just got 10 levels to go, I'll just go feed you heirloom gear and you can go into God mode with me where it triples your DPS or something silly. Because we've got a DPS meter up and, like, I can just crush his DPS because my gear is just way better.
And this is just my personality, right? Because we've talked about the pros and cons of DPS meters here on the channel before. For me, though, it informs me of I could be doing something better, and it encourages me to experiment and to see how I can then make it better. I was running it and I was like, oops, I wasn't in the right boom chicken stance, or oops, like, I was not actually I didn't think that was a dot. I thought that was something I had to build up to, and I misread the tooltips. Like, there's so much stuff that even though I do read tooltips, it doesn't mean I completely understand them. And what the DPS meter for me does is it educates me that, hey, I could be doing something a little bit different. And so we were doing these big pulls in the dungeon and I was on the bottom, but then I was like, oh, I have an AoE. Okay, that's what that is. I didn't realize that was an AoE, but I want to make sure I get into this stance and into the moon thing so that way I'm not just burning all my resources. Oh, and I also have this big hitting thing that I wasn't using as a part of my rotation because it had a little bit different, longer cooldown. Okay, now I'm starting to understand it and seeing that my DPS actively reflect that. And so I've always been pro DPS meter, but I know the cons that we've debated here on the channel before. And so I'm going to tell you, like, for me, though, it does help me to strive to be a better player. And I can see how it obviously then switches. It can easily switch to abuse if I wasn't playing with people I know, right? They're like, look at this guy.
Yeah, there are some toxic portions of what it causes. There are, but there's also a lot of information. There's also a higher level of play that's possible with information that you just can't. You can't know if you're doing well if there is no definition of well and there's no test against it. So like not everybody responds well to standardized testing in the real world or in games, but without it, then we don't have a measure. And so like pros and cons, which Yoshi P has said, like, it's not that he's totally against the DPS meter. He just wants to understand how and to implement it correctly. And much like Blitzball, that means that in the end, you just don't get one because there is no correct implementation. Yeah. So I will say, like, you've done your first dungeon. You're roughly halfway through the levels. Obviously, pacing will change. How are you feeling, like, as far as like music and immersion? Do you feel that it competes with 14, or is the lack of like the break for cutscenes and like an MSQ something that you miss?
They've done a few of that. So within the world of 14, I really enjoyed those beats. I do feel that the game is better narrated. I'm getting more lore while I'm doing something as opposed to taking a break and watching a cutscene. And so I have often wondered, like, I wonder what it would be like if, and this is the trust system to a T, if all of a sudden, instead of sitting here watching this play out, this conversation was happening while we were running a dungeon, right? And so that's kind of where that's the difference. I think personally my bias is that 14 is better. It handles it better. It does a better job of production, and some of the cutscenes just blow me away. I haven't seen all the cutscenes in WoW, so that's an unfair comparison if I was going to do apples to oranges in this case. But there was some cutscenes that happened, and I thought they were well done. But I love the exposition that's fed to me while I'm playing WoW, as opposed to the exposition that kind of comes in these just giant bundles. But that's just my preference. That's the same thing I actually enjoy about Destiny. I'm getting the exposition and the story while I'm shooting and doing something, and it's less about taking a break. And obviously, like, everybody's going to have that personal preference, whether you were enjoying the movie or whatever. So it's not like, it's hard to say who wore it best, because I would say 14, but then I would need more of WoW to kind of say, like, oh no, I was way more active. I do appreciate what they're doing, and hands down, the characterization, especially with when bosses are vocally taunting me, makes me wish we had more voice acting in the world of Final Fantasy XIV. And I've said that for a long time. I've said that, and I maintain that, especially when it comes to raids. We haven't even done raids yet, and it's like, man, in raids, like, they're, it'd be so cool, because in the trials they taunt you voice, but then in this bigger raid, like, there's no voice, and it's like, man, missed opportunity.
And our assumption was language support was the reason, right? Because it's an American-based company, and so having voice acting in English is easier for them. But somebody in chat said no, that they just dub all that stuff for other languages. Yeah. So they may be hiring that through a service, kind of like Netflix does or whatever. But
Yoshi P has many times commented that he wished he had the Blizzard budget for WoW.
Yes, he has. Yes. When it was actually, that was like a big piece of his response when we asked him why he hasn't had like a response to the Mythic Plus system. Yeah. And he basically is like, well, if I had a big checkbook, and it's amazing how much ground he can close on them, considering how much less money is spent on 14 compared to WoW. Yeah, exactly. So I guess from there, I would say, like, one of the big critiques of Final Fantasy XIV for new players coming in is that until you get far enough into the leveling process to get your off the global cooldown abilities, the global cooldown feels like it really slows the combat pace. How do you feel the combat pace is with the faster global cooldown? You have less abilities on the bar.
It's better. It's better because
just objectively
better, because you have also less abilities on the bar. So that's the problem that 14 faces at the beginning. You have less abilities, and you have the longer global cooldown. So my thought is, like, if they want to keep that global cooldown at that same level, that's fine, but you got to introduce those much sooner. I think gamers are hungry for that, but it does feel more like the training wheels are on longer in 14, and they've made adjustments, but like with the skills and the skill calling that we've seen expansion over expansion, I think they need to think about like, hey, you either need to bring in the combo system, for players who might want that, so you don't have to sit here and worry about constantly culling skills so the job feels amazing at level 80 or amazing at level 90, and then it's just some of it like these different tiers internally. So
Sure.
it's hard. Like I've gone back and played a new character, and it's like, okay. But then in WoW, it's like, yeah, I might have 1 or 2 or 3 abilities, but it's much more faster, much more engaging. And so that's just, yeah, hands down, 14 needs to make some kind of adjustment there. I think when you look at the job at the high cap, reducing it's fast. You got so much stuff going on, it wouldn't make sense to lower that thing, lower it down. So they either need to bring in new skills or off the global cooldowns earlier in 14 just to help new players get excited, because it's like, yeah, there is a lot going on, and no, you don't want it to be faster, because at cap, which it's balanced for, there's all kinds of things to be doing. Yeah, that's just my thought.
Okay. I actually got this thought from Preach Gaming. He talks about how like raid content is designed to challenge, and dungeon content is kind of designed to keep you honest, but the world content out in the world, it's designed to die. So it never gives us a good example of a full rotation. The uptime of a monster is usually seconds, not minutes.
Yeah.
And so like the world, as a result, because we have so much focus put on dungeons and raiding, doesn't feel dangerous in many games like it would in like a Dark Souls, where that is the in-game focus. Do you feel that this world is more or less dangerous than when you first ran into kind of Shadowbringers content?
I think they're on par. I think when you look at the open world in both games, it's meant to die, and that's the thing that's always like, I like games, MMOs that are balanced around parties, and that's why I really wish we would have a trust system out in the open world, because then I think if you had the mindset that you can go with friends or you can go with NPCs, but you don't go alone, then the world will feel dangerous. The worlds don't feel dangerous. They just don't. And the same thing in WoW. Like, the only time it's gotten risky is when we've pulled 10 mobs. Oh, and then guess what? We handled it. It's like, okay, like, that just, as an MMO, the old school, it's just an old school MMO player in me. It's like, no. Like, I want the world to be threatening. And, I want there a reason for us to team up, because if there's a reason for us to team up, then we will. If there's not a reason for us to team up, then we won't. And I think the way you offset that with the way the world is today is you bring in that trust system, that ability to say, and then because an NPC, a robot, does not feel bad when you kick them from party. It's like, hey, Chris is here. All right, we don't need this bot anymore. Like, but you have to balance it around that aspect, and neither game does that. And I think I think it's a bummer. I think that's a long-standing critique I've had of 14, and that's why I like Boja. That's why I like some of these other like zones, because they're balanced around players actually being there.
And now I have let him use my vendor mount, so like we've
Yeah.
saved ourselves for the pacing. So that is one thing that you've had access to.
It's nice.
But like the difference between flight paths, right, kind of chocobo porters,
Yeah.
and not having aetheryte crystals, like how do you feel that changes your relationship with like the world pacing and the zone scaling?
So that takes me into the world and has me getting a better understanding of what it's like, right? So same thing with 14, you don't fly right away. They have you explore the zones before they give you that ability. That's only something that's going to be a better understand with time, and that's because I can't fly yet in these zones. And when I do, I'm sure I'm just going to then fly over them. Just like, so porting with a porter, it does allow for a connectivity thing, because you see yourself traveling. And that also ties into the zone lines not loading. Like, it's not a loading screen, where in 14 it is. And I do actually prefer the WoW model over that. As long as you can get to wherever you need to go, quickly, it's still like, I like that travel time. I wish on ships you had that travel time. Like, the bigger the world feels, when we have introduced all these different travel methods, the smaller this world feels. And so it's like, it's kind of nice to be like, yeah, this place is massive, and you've done the work, and now you can get to that part of the world pretty easily.
Cool. Well, I think that's really all of the questions. Like, do you think I guess the last one is like, do you think you would play this if I wasn't going to play the rest with you? If I said, I'll just see you in Shadowlands, are you enjoying it enough to compare to other games that you do make time for outside of 14?
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing that is going to run up against is with Destiny and with Cyberpunk. Like, I'm going to have to find, because I want to hit cap. It's like, if you weren't playing with me, if that, like, I would still, like I'm going to hit this goal, and hopefully I can hit it before other things that I'm excited about equally pop in. Destiny Beyond Light drops. It's going to be hard for me to want to step away from that game, because I have such a nostalgic rooted Destiny experience where within WoW, the best case for me is to get to cap and get hooked in that regards to, doing dungeons becomes something like, hey, it's Tuesday, let's run a dungeon or two, because that's fun, because we can chit chat and hang out. Same thing within 14. I really want to try the M+. There's a lot of content in WoW that I want to touch, especially just to have that mindset of how does this compare with 14? Is there something comparable? How would I like to see 14 make that change? And that's just kind of where I'm like, yeah, I want to experience it. So yeah, if you weren't playing, like I was playing the other day, and you were and you didn't get up because that was just a miscommunication on my part, because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to stream because I'm going to wait to see, and then you were able to take over the stream in that regard, so it worked out. But the yeah, I was playing, I was having a good time. And I was like, all right, well, and the thing is that you know how, and you can catch back up to me immediately. So I wasn't worried about like, waiting on Chris. I was like, no, he's already at cap. Like
I also don't have to.
Yeah.
Like my character's still 25 because we went into that dungeon. I switched to a different character.
Mm-hmm.
You're 2 levels ahead of me. When we go out in the world, you don't click level sync on. The world is just synced. So I can play with you at 25. The only bummer is going to be that like when you hit 50, I won't be 50.
Right.
But yeah, I can catch up because of the way Erlen works.
Yeah, exactly. So those are my thoughts. I really, man, have a good time. I have a random hiccup that was trying to escape. Guys, let me know what you think. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Like, Chris, you got any final thoughts or anything you want to plug?
No, I wanted to kind of sit down and get all of this so we can look back on this video once you hit 50. And then I'd like to kind of take you to 50 and get a lap through kind of a world tour of like, let's touch each kind of content.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of PvP modes that I'd like you to try. There's I wouldn't mind him trying Island Expeditions, M+, maybe jump into an LFR if those are still live. Maybe run some dailies, some world quests, at least pick a faction and get him to Exalted with that. Take him on a couple lacks for gold making. So like there's a whole number of things that like there's all these different communities in WoW, and I would love for him to get like a little taste of all of them, and then we'll come back and do this again. So if you have anything that you don't want him to miss, like definitely put it in the comments down below, and I'll try to make sure if we have time that we get through as much of that as possible before we come back and we do this again for kind of a what does a new player feel like at completion as we prepare to step into a new expansion.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching this video. You guys are amazing. We love you very much. For Work to Game, my name's Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks for watching, and hopefully you have a fantastic day.
Take care.
This video is sponsored by me, Ginger Prime. Hopefully you'll check out my podcast channel, Ginger Gaming Radio, which we have lots of guests, lots of great conversations, and even more highlights. Links are in the description below. Let me know what you think. Thanks.